everybody! So today we are at the next entry in our Disney Canon rewatch, and today we're looking at the 24th animated classic, The Fox and the Hound. This film came out in 1981, and there would then go on to be a pretty big gap before The Black Cauldron would come out, I think in 1985. And this movie, I think, is a huge step up from The Rescuers, in my opinion, in pretty much every way. It looks so much better. I'm no animation expert, but to me, the animation just looks so much better. And I think everything about it is much better than The Rescuers. And of course, you know what I felt about that film. But let's talk about The Fox and the Hound. And first of all, it's definitely, in my opinion, Disney's most sentimental and most schmaltzy movie. It is syrupy. It's very cheesy. Whatever food metaphor you want to use, it lays it on thick. But I think it kind of works. I mean, I sort of said that it's like the Lifetime original movie of the Disney Canon. I think that's sort of true. It tells the story of this fox named Todd and this hound dog named Copper. And I always felt like it should be the opposite. I always felt like the fox should have been named Copper. Because Copper's kind of reddish color, but this fox ends up getting kind of adopted by this widow Tweed, and she takes care of it, kind of babies the fox. He's little, he meets this hound dog that is owned by Amos, who's the next door neighbor. And of course, these hound dogs are taught to hunt foxes. That's one of the things they do. And so everybody keeps telling them that they are going to be enemies. But they hit it off really well at first as little kids. They are the best of friends, and they frolic together, and they have a great time. And it's very sweet. Like I said, it is a sweet movie. There's another dog named Chief, who is kind of the older dog of Amos, and he finds Todd on their property and alerts Amos, and there's this big hubbub, and there's this crazy scene where Amos is following the widow Tweed in his car and shooting on the open road, which is really kind of strange. But it works. It's sort of funny, and Amos is insane. Like, there's absolutely no doubt that he's crazy, but he's very upset with Todd coming on his property. He yells at the widow, and so then she sort of stands up for Todd, and she says that he's not going to be any trouble to him. And Amos ends up taking Chief and Copper on this long hunting trip, and this is where he's going to train Copper to really be a hunting dog. And he's gone for the whole winter. And also during this time, we get some funny little vignettes between this little bird and that's voiced by Paul Winchell. It's Dinky and Boomer, and they're kind of hunting after this little centipede, kind of. So anyway, there's sort of that little comic relief. So Copper comes back, and he's of course grown now after this time, and Todd is also grown. And Todd goes over there thinking, oh, they're still going to be the best of friends. He doesn't really listen. Mama, who's kind of the narrator of the story, who's this owl, and things don't go well when he goes over there. And Amos gets really upset, kind of chasing after each other, and Chief ends up getting hurt. And so Copper kind of blames Todd for Chief getting hurt. And so they become sort of these enemies that they were expected to become. And Amos gets really upset at the widow and tells her that he needs to get rid of this fox. And so she finally, in this very tearful scene with this poem that's a very Hallmark greeting card, it's very cheesy, this poem.
Seems such a short time ago. You looked at me, needing me so. Yet from your sadness, our happiness grew. And I found out I needed you too.
She drops him off in this sanctuary kind of thing, and all of a sudden he has to make it in the great outdoors, all for the first time really in his life. But Amos isn't satisfied, and so he goes after him, even though he's not really supposed to in that area. He sets traps. He's kind of out hunting for Todd. And this is also where Todd meets a girl fox named Vixie, and I'm not a big fan of Vixie. She has some personality at first, but she is totally the insta-love trope from Disney, you know, like we got in the Jungle Book, where the male looks at the female and all of a sudden the eyes get all glazed over, and I hate that. I think it's so annoying. And what annoys me the most about Vixie is that Todd's like a real jerk. He's like being all grumpy, and because he tries to fish and he's not able to fish, and so he's being all like a 5-year-old. He's putting up a big stink, and she, of course, at first is like, well, forget you, who needs you? And then Big Mama sings this song about how they really should love each other because that's the way nature intended it, and then just like that, boom, they're like in love, and everything's forgotten. The fact that he was just a jerk. I don't know, it annoys me. I hate that whole like, oh, I'm gonna hypnotize you with my beauty. I don't like it. And I think Vixie is one of the worst of those. And so anyway, she's just a complete, undeveloped, boring, lame character. But whatever. And so they meet, and Amos is kind of after him, and being a moment where Copper has to decide whether he will stick up for his childhood friend. And it's actually pretty moving, and there's this amazing bear scene that is very scary, and some of the best animation up to that point that we had ever seen from Disney. And I think that scene with the bear really changed Disney animation forever. I mean, so many important people worked on that scene, and it just was so much better than as far as just animation than they'd seen certainly since the early days. One of the things that is the most important, I think, about Fox and the Hound is what it did for Disney animation as far as recruiting talent. Of course, you had people like Don Bluth who would then go on and leave Disney Animation that were very involved in this, but he'd been involved in other stuff. But here's some of the names that were either recruited or heavily involved in working on the Fox and the Hound. You had John Lasseter, John Musker, Ron Clements, Glenn Keane, Tim Burton, Brad Bird, Henry Selick, Chris Buck, and Mark Dindal. Those would all go on to make some of the best Disney animation in the next 30 years. Sort of a learning ground for all of them. I think that the songs are fine, but none of them are particularly memorable. I have to look it up and find out the names of the songs. I think that Pearl Bailey as Big Mama does a good job with the songs, and she has a good voice, but they're just kind of forgettable. Like I said, this is an incredibly sentimental, incredibly cheesy story, and particularly with the poem and the way everything is just very, 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 very cheesy. But I don't mind that. I think that's actually fine. I don't care about that, but it definitely won't be everyone's cup of tea, that's for sure. But I think for how sentimental and syrupy this movie is, I think that the ending is actually not that tidy. It's not like they go off and are just going to be best friends the rest of their lives and everything is made right and everything is better. It's not. It's more complex than that, which I really appreciate. And I think that's actually a good lesson to learn for kids, you know, that not everything is perfect, and that, you know, certain things do fade away, certain things do end, but that doesn't mean that they have to end badly. They can end kind of on a good note. There's different sort of phases of life. So that's all sort of a good message, I think, to share. It's definitely scary. The bear attack, I think, sort of, to me, feels like it belongs in a different movie, even though I really love it. It's so discordant from the rest of the film, where everything is very sweet and bright and beautiful and painted with, you know, sort of gold colors, and you get this intense, scary bear scene. It feels a little bit like it doesn't quite belong, but it is really beautifully animated, amazingly animated. And so it might be too scary for some little kids, depending on their tolerance for that. I know that it would be too scary for some of my nieces who were very scared by the bear scene in Brave. They would be scared by this as well. Some of the stuff with Dinky and Boomer is kind of forgettable and it doesn't really need to really be there. But overall, it's very, very, very sweet. Like I said, it's very well animated. It has a nice message about sort of the untidiness of friendship and loyalty. And I do think some people say that if Chief had actually died at the scene instead of just becoming hurt, that it would have more sort of emotional intensity, and you'd buy the fact that Copper would be that upset and that angry at Todd. And I think there is something to that. That's probably true. But I still think the movie works. I still think it's a good watch. It's a entertaining watch. It kind of gives you a lot of different emotions in one movie. And so I will give Fox and the Hound a B-. And so let me know what you think of Fox and the Hound. And thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel and I'll talk to you later. Bye.